I sat in the HR office with my hands folded tight in my lap, trying to keep them from shaking. Margot Tate, the HR director, slid a paper across the desk toward me. Not the investigation report I expected. A performance warning. My mouth went dry as I read the header twice, unable to believe what I was seeing. Ava, this conversation ends here, Margot said flatly, not even looking at me while she typed something on her laptop. There is no harassment case. What we have is a communication issue you need to address professionally. I stared at the document, my name printed at the top like an accusation. 3 months of emails, documentation, timestamps, all of it ignored. She leaned back in her chair with the kind of calm that comes from knowing she held all the power. Or so she thought. I signed the warning because I had no choice, walked out of that office, and felt something shift inside me. Not fear anymore. Clarity. They had chosen their side, and it wasn't mine. 3 months earlier, everything had seemed fine. I had just been reassigned to a new team under Hunter Calloway, a senior manager everyone spoke about with careful voices. He's brilliant but demanding, my old supervisor told me during the handoff. Stay on his good side. I laughed it off, confident in my work. I had been at Belridge and Company for 2 years, consistently praised for my data analysis skills. Hunter seemed charming during our first meeting, asking about my background and complimenting my previous projects. He had dark hair going silver at the temples, expensive suits, and the kind of smile that made you feel chosen. I think you'll fit perfectly here, he said, shaking my hand just a second too long. The other team members were friendly but quiet, like they were holding something back. I ignored the strange energy and dove into my assignments, eager to prove myself in the new role. The first incident happened 2 weeks in. We had a late meeting to review quarterly projections, just Hunter and me in the conference room. Everyone else had already left for the day. When I stood to go, he moved casually to block the doorway, not aggressively, just standing there with his arms crossed. Before you run off, he said with that same charming smile, I wanted to give you some mentorship advice. One-on-one. That's when real growth happens. Something in his tone made my stomach tighten. He stood too close, spoke too softly, held eye contact too long. Nothing I could point to as definitively wrong, but wrong enough that I felt trapped. I mumbled something about needing to catch my bus and squeezed past him. He laughed like I was being silly. That night, I opened my phone's notes app and typed the date, time, and exactly what happened. Just in case. Over the next few weeks, Hunter's behavior started splitting into 2 distinct versions. In public meetings, he criticized my work with sharp little comments that made others glance away uncomfortably. Ava's analysis needs work, he would say, even when my numbers matched everyone else's. She's still learning our standards. But in private, everything changed. He would appear behind my desk, leaning over my shoulder to look at my screen, his breath warm against my ear. You're the brightest person on this team, he would whisper. Don't let anyone tell you different. The dual treatment made me question my own reality. Was I imagining things? Overreacting? I started arriving earlier and leaving later, trying to avoid being alone with him. My coworker Tess noticed. You okay? She asked quietly one morning. I nodded, not ready to say it out loud yet. But I kept documenting everything in my phone. By week 6, I couldn't ignore it anymore. I drafted my first email to HR, choosing every word carefully, keeping my tone professional and measured. I explained that I needed clarification on appropriate workplace boundaries and described the incidents without using the word harassment. I mentioned feeling uncomfortable during late meetings and requested guidance on how to address the situation. I read it 5 times before hitting send, my finger hovering over the button. The response came 2 days later. 2 sentences. We see no issue based on your description. We recommend direct communication with your manager to resolve any misunderstandings. My chest felt hollow reading those words. Direct communication. With the person making me uncomfortable. I stared at that email for a long time, then saved it in a folder I titled Work Documentation. I didn't stop working. I didn't complain to coworkers. I just kept my head down and continued doing my job perfectly. The office culture started shifting around me like I was standing in quicksand. Conversations stopped when I entered the break room. People who used to chat with me suddenly found reasons to hurry away. Someone started a rumor that I couldn't handle pressure, that I was difficult to work with. Hunter smiled at me in the hallways like nothing had ever happened, always with witnesses around, always friendly and professional. It was brilliant, really. He looked like the reasonable one while I looked paranoid. One afternoon, Tess pulled me aside near the copy machine, glancing around to make sure no one was listening. He did this to someone before, she whispered urgently. A woman named Kelly, 2 years ago. She left suddenly. Don't let them isolate you like they did her. Before I could ask more, Tess walked away quickly. I stood there holding blank paper, feeling the walls close in. But that night, I researched Kelly's name in old company directories. Found nothing. They had erased her completely. The conference trip changed everything. Our team flew to a client presentation in another city, and Hunter insisted we all stay at the same hotel for team unity. The presentation went well, and everyone gathered at the hotel bar afterward to celebrate. I tried to leave early, but Hunter called me back. Don't be antisocial, Ava. Have one drink with the team. I stayed, nursing water while others drank wine. When I finally stood to go, Hunter appeared beside me, his hand suddenly pressing against my lower back, fingers spread wide. He leaned in close, his words slightly slurred. You should be more grateful, he said softly, so only I could hear. I've been protecting your career. Not everyone would. I pulled away sharply and walked straight to the elevator, my skin crawling. In my hotel room, I spent 2 hours writing 3 detailed emails to HR, describing every incident with dates, times, witnesses, and exact quotes. I sent all 3. None of them were ever answered. Back at the office, silence. No acknowledgement from HR. No follow-up. Nothing. A coworker I barely knew approached me in the parking garage one evening, looking nervous. I probably shouldn't tell you this, he said, but nothing sticks to Hunter. HR protects him. Always has. He walked away before I could respond. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat at my kitchen table with my laptop, searching federal workplace harassment laws. That's when I found it. Belridge and Company received federal funding for 3 government contracts we managed. Any company receiving federal funds was legally required to formally investigate all harassment complaints within specific timeframes. They had to document everything, follow procedures, provide outcomes. It wasn't optional. It was federal law. My ignored emails weren't just bad HR practice. They were legal violations. I sat back, staring at the screen, feeling something cold and sharp settle in my chest. They had made a mistake. And I had proof. 2 days later, Hunter called me into his office. I want to offer you something special, he said, gesturing to the chair across from his desk. A mentorship opportunity. Fast track to promotion. Just you and me, working closely together. His smile was warm, fatherly almost. Everything in me screamed to refuse. But I thought about Kelly, erased from company history. I thought about my unanswered emails. I smiled back. That sounds wonderful, I said. I really appreciate your support. His face lit up. Excellent. We'll start next week. I left his office and immediately documented the conversation. Date, time, exact words. He thought I was trusting him. He thought he had won. But I was building something he would never see coming. Every message he sent, every meeting he scheduled, every inappropriate comment, I saved it all. And I never stopped working perfectly. I requested another meeting with HR. This time, I brought printed copies of every email I had sent, highlighted and organized by date. Margot barely looked at them. Ava, you're overreacting, she said with forced patience. We see no evidence of hostile behavior. Hunter has an excellent record with this company. She slid another paper across the desk. A work behavior improvement plan. We think you should sign this, she continued. It shows you're committed to professional growth and moving past these misunderstandings. I read it carefully. It was full of vague language about accepting feedback and maintaining positive team relationships. Signing it would create a paper trail suggesting I was the problem. I set down the pen. I need time to review this with an advisor, I said calmly. Margot's expression hardened. That's unnecessary. This is standard procedure. I stood, leaving the document unsigned on her desk. I'll get back to you? Her eyes followed me out, cold as winter. The isolation started immediately. Meetings got moved without notification. I would arrive at conference rooms to find them empty, then learn the meeting had been rescheduled an hour earlier. Files stopped appearing in my shared folders. Project updates excluded my name. One morning, A teammate I considered friendly approached my desk hesitantly. "Ava, I was told to reassign your part of the Morrison account," he said quietly, not meeting my eyes. "Orders from above." I felt it then, the full weight of being phased out. They were building a case to fire me, creating documentation that I wasn't performing, wasn't participating. Classic retaliation. That afternoon, alone at my desk while everyone else attended a meeting I hadn't been invited to, I let myself feel the loneliness, the fear, the exhaustion. Then I opened my laptop and got back to work. If they wanted to push me out, they would have to work a lot harder than this. I found a workplace advisor through an online legal resource network. Her name was Patricia, and she had 20 years of experience with employment law. We met at a coffee shop across town where no one from Belridge would see us. "Bring everything," she had said on the phone. I arrived with a USB drive containing every email, every document, every note I had taken for 3 months. Patricia reviewed it all in silence, her expression growing more serious with each page. "This is textbook harassment and retaliation," she finally said. "And the fact that they receive federal funding makes their failure to investigate extremely problematic." She looked up at me. "But here's what you need to understand. The moment you escalate this, they will come at you hard. You need to be perfect. No mistakes, no emotional outbursts, just facts. Can you do that?" I thought about Hunter's smile. About Margot's cold dismissal. "Yes," I said. "I can." She nodded. "Then let's make sure they regret ignoring you." 2 weeks later, I discovered something while reviewing contract files. My data analysis work was directly tied to the Riverside project, a multi-million-dollar government contract that Belridge had been celebrating for months. But buried in the compliance requirements was a clause I had never paid attention to before. All data analysis reports submitted to the federal agency required legal sign-off from the lead analyst, me. Without my signature verifying the accuracy of the work, the contract deliverables could not be formally accepted. The contract could not close. I sat very still at my desk, staring at that clause. They had been so focused on pushing me out that they hadn't considered this. I held quiet power over their most important deal, and nobody knew. I opened a new document and began carefully noting every deadline, every signature requirement, every point where my cooperation was legally necessary. Then I saved it in 3 different places and continued working as if nothing had changed. The announcement came on a Thursday morning. Company-wide email. "We are pleased to announce Hunter Calloway's promotion to Director of Strategic Operations. The position I had been told I was being considered for 6 months ago. The position I was more qualified for. HR called it a better cultural fit." I read that email 3 times, feeling something break and reform inside me. This was the moment they thought they had won. This was them celebrating. I closed my laptop, went to the bathroom, and looked at myself in the mirror. My reflection stared back, tired but clear-eyed. I didn't cry. I smiled. Because now I knew exactly what I was going to do. I walked back to my desk, opened my work documentation folder, and began compiling everything into one comprehensive file. Every ignored email, every policy violation, every timeline. It took me 6 hours. When I finished, I had a dossier that could not be explained away. The email trail told a story they couldn't spin. October 15th, first complaint sent, no response. October 23rd, second complaint with specific incidents, 2-sentence dismissal. November 2nd, third complaint with witness names, completely ignored. November 18th, meeting with HR, told to handle it directly. December 1st, fourth complaint after conference trip incident, no acknowledgement. December 9th, offered behavior improvement plan instead of investigation. I organized everything chronologically with timestamps. Then I cross-referenced it with federal requirements under Title IX and workplace safety regulations applicable to federal contractors. Every ignored email wasn't just negligence. It was a documented violation of compliance standards their federal contracts required. I attached relevant policy codes, contract clauses, and legal precedents. I included the Riverside project signature requirements. The document was 63 pages long. Impossible to dismiss. Impossible to ignore. I saved it with a simple title, Formal Complaint Documentation and Compliance Review Request. I scheduled a follow-up meeting with Margot, keeping my tone friendly and professional in the email request. "Just want to touch base on previous discussions," I wrote. She agreed, probably thinking I was ready to sign their behavior plan and disappear quietly. The meeting was set for Tuesday at 10. Monday night, I prepared the email. Subject line, HR complaint history for record-keeping purposes. Body text, brief, professional, attached the full 63-page document. Recipients, every person in the HR department, marked as reply all. I scheduled it to send at 9:55 Tuesday morning. Then I went to bed and actually slept. Tuesday morning, I arrived at Margot's office at 10 exactly. She seemed tense, staring at her computer screen with an expression I couldn't read. Ava, she started, but her phone buzzed. Then buzzed again. And again. I watched her face change as she realized what had happened. I sent a summary to HR, I said calmly. For record-keeping purposes. As you recommended. The silence in that office was beautiful. Margot's fingers hovered over her keyboard, frozen. Her phone kept buzzing with notifications. Finally, she looked up at me, and for the first time, I saw something other than dismissal in her eyes. Fear. This is highly irregular, she said, her voice strained. You should have waited for our review process. I smiled politely. I've been waiting for 3 months. I thought comprehensive documentation would help move things along. I could see her mind racing, calculating. We'll need time to review this information, she said carefully. Of course, I replied. I trust this investigation will comply with all federal guidelines for contractors receiving government funding. I let those last words hang in the air. Her face went pale. She knew. Now they all knew that I knew. We'll be in touch, she said weakly. I stood, smoothed my jacket, and walked out. Behind me, I heard her immediately pick up her phone, her voice urgent and low. Over the next 3 days, strange things started happening. Shared folders I had access to suddenly disappeared from my drive. Emails I knew existed in the company's system seemed to vanish from search results. Someone was trying to bury evidence. I watched it happen with cold amusement, because they didn't know about my backup system. Every Friday for 3 months, I had been sending myself encrypted copies of everything to a personal email account, then downloading it to an external drive stored at Patricia's office. Every document was timestamped with digital signatures. Every email automatically forwarded to an off-site backup service that Patricia's firm maintained. They could delete whatever they wanted from the company system. My evidence existed in 4 separate locations they could never access. On Thursday, I received a vague email from HR asking me to confirm which documents I had shared. I replied with a simple sentence, all documentation has been properly stored according to legal advisor recommendations. Friday afternoon, I was alone in the elevator when Hunter stepped in just before the doors closed. We stood in silence as the elevator descended. Then he spoke, his voice soft and almost sad. You're ruining your reputation, Ava. People are talking. This doesn't have to get ugly. I didn't look at him. Didn't respond. Just watched the floor numbers decrease. The elevator reached the lobby and the doors opened. I stepped out without a word and walked straight to my car. For the first time in 3 months, I felt no fear around him. None. He had no power over me anymore. That night, I drafted one more email. Subject, Board Notification Compliance Concerns regarding federal contract requirements. Recipients, every member of Belridge's Board of Directors, pulled from the Public Corporate Registry. I attached the full documentation, the ignored complaints, the retaliation timeline, and most importantly, the federal compliance violations. At midnight, I hit send. Then I poured myself tea and waited for the earthquake. Monday morning felt different the moment I walked into the building. The receptionist looked at me strangely. The security guard nodded with something that looked like respect. On my floor, people moved through the halls with urgent, hushed voices. Meetings were being cancelled. Executives I rarely saw were disappearing into conference rooms with tight expressions. Someone from legal walked past me carrying 3 file boxes. By lunch, the whispers had started. The founder had left a golf tournament on Saturday mid-game after receiving an emergency call. The board had convened an emergency session Sunday night. HR's entire system was being audited. Someone saw external lawyers in the building. I sat at my desk, working calmly while chaos swirled around me. Around 2 o'clock, a senior IT manager stopped by. Your access is being reviewed, he said. Standard procedure during investigations. We might need to temporarily restrict some permissions. I looked at him steadily. I've followed every protocol correctly. My documentation proves that. He nodded slowly. Yeah, we know. That's why your access is staying active. He walked away. Tuesday morning, the announcement came via internal memo. Margot Tate has resigned effective immediately to pursue other opportunities. We thank her for her service. No farewell party. No final email. Just gone. An hour later, another memo. Hunter Calloway has been placed on administrative leave pending review of internal matters. By lunch, people who had avoided me for months were suddenly making eye contact in the hallways. Someone left a coffee on my desk anonymously. The whisper culture that had isolated me was turning. People who had called me difficult and paranoid were now saying things like I always thought something was wrong and I'm glad someone finally said something. I watched it all with detached clarity. The IT department formally confirmed that my access would remain unchanged because I had filed everything through proper channels. Hunter's office was emptied by security. His nameplate removed. Margot's door stayed closed, dark. The erasure was swift and absolute. Just like Kelly. Except this time, I was the one still standing. Wednesday afternoon, I received an email from the board chairman's executive assistant. The board requests your presence at a meeting Thursday at 9. Please bring any relevant documentation. I arrived early, wearing my best suit, carrying nothing but a tablet with organized notes. The boardroom was on the top floor, all glass walls and polished wood. 8 executives sat waiting, their expressions serious and unreadable. No lawyers yet, which surprised me. The chairman gestured to a seat. Ms. Ava, thank you for coming. We've reviewed your documentation. We'd like to hear directly from you what happened and what you believe needs to change. I had prepared for hostility, for defense, for legal maneuvering. Not for this. I took a breath and began. I spoke calmly, factually, walking through the timeline without emotion. I mentioned the federal compliance requirements they had violated. I explained the signature authority I held on the Riverside project. And then I said something I had practiced with Patricia. I'm not here for revenge. I'm here because this company needs a real employee protection system, and the federal funding you receive already provides the framework to build it. The board chairman's face was unreadable as he made notes. Then the company's general counsel, who had been silent until now, spoke up. During our investigation, we discovered that HR attempted to delete internal complaint records over the weekend. The room went very still. What we didn't realize, he continued, looking at me with something like respect, is that your original email automatically forwarded to our off-site backup system that IT maintains for compliance auditing. The deleted files were recovered immediately, which means we now have clear evidence of obstruction. I kept my expression neutral, but inside, something settled. They had tried to bury me one final time, and it had buried them instead. The chairman leaned forward. Ms. Ava, your documentation has revealed serious systemic failures. We're prepared to take significant action. He paused. But we'd like to know what you want from this situation. I didn't hesitate. I want a department dedicated to workplace integrity, funded through the federal protection programs you're already required to maintain. Independent reporting. Real investigations. Protection for employees who speak up. Silence. Then the chairman nodded. We'll make it happen. The announcements rolled out over the next week. Hunter Calloway's employment was terminated for violations of workplace conduct policies. Margot Tate's resignation was noted with no further comment. The company issued a formal written apology to me, which I requested be kept private. Then came the big one. Belridge & Company was launching a new workplace integrity initiative, establishing an independent department responsible for investigating complaints, ensuring federal compliance, and protecting employee rights. Applications for department leadership would be posted internally first. I received a personal email from the chairman. We hope you'll consider applying for the director position. Your insight would be invaluable. I sat at my kitchen table, reading that email 3 times. The position didn't exist 3 months ago. I had designed it, fought for it, bled for it. Now they were offering it to me like a gift. I thought about Kelly, erased and forgotten. About every person who had been silenced before me. I opened my laptop and started drafting my application, not because they offered it, but because I had earned it. My first day as Director of Workplace Integrity, I arrived at 7 in the morning. My new office was on the executive floor, directly across from where Margot's office used to be. The glass door had my name etched in clean letters with my title underneath. I stood there for a moment, looking at it, feeling the weight of everything that had led here. Inside, my desk faced the window with a view of the city. On the wall, I hung a single frame, a printed copy of the federal compliance requirements that had saved me, not as decoration, as a reminder. People started arriving around 8. Some nodded respectfully as they passed. Others looked away, ashamed. I didn't need their apologies. I needed their cooperation. At 9, I had my first meeting with my new team, 3 people hired specifically to help build real protection systems. We started with policy drafts, reporting structures, training requirements. At lunch, Tess stopped by with coffee. "You did it," she said quietly. I smiled. We all did. This department exists for everyone now. As she left, I turned back to my window, looking out at the city, thinking about everything I had learned. I never wanted revenge. I just wanted respect. Turns out sometimes they feel exactly the same.